Well, welcome back, guys, to the Futbal Biz podcast. As always, I'm Graysen Mortimer. He's Hunter Boyven. And a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. Both of us have been busy college students, so we haven't been able to make an episode in a couple of weeks. But we're back. We're going to get to it. And we're going to go over the Champions League, the few results that happened over the last couple of weeks, as well as some important results from La Liga, the Prem, Bundesliga, Serie A, all of that jazz per usual. So to start us off here, and the fixture that we were a little competitive over, um, the Man City knocked out Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and that I put on the Instagram story. Graysen 1, Hunter 0. That was after the first game, but City did win, and not looking like a good season for you.
No, we'll mention this down the line in a little bit, but this very well could be a trophyless season, which is not something a Bayern fan for the last 10 years even knows what that means. There's always been at least one, usually at least two, honestly. But yeah, can't say that I'm surprised after the gameplay. I don't think it didn't matter with Nagelsmann or Tuchel, whoever would have been there, it would have been the end result would have been the same. I think City was clearly the better team. Um, and I think they'll most certainly give Madrid a run for their money this time around.
I mean, I certainly hope so. As much as I do like Madrid as well, I really would rather City win the Champions League. I'm kind of tired of hearing people say that, oh, you guys will never be a big club. You haven't won the Champions League. You haven't won the Champions League. There's certain people out there that give me this all the time, and it's annoying. It's super annoying. I don't love hearing that. So I'd rather City win it at this point. But I mean, yeah, they were phenomenal in both matches, even the away tie. Holland showed up when they needed him to. He scored in both games. He assisted Bernardo Silva's goal as well in the first match. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't even close. If it wasn't for Jan Sommer, the first game would have been
Yeah,
5 or 6.
I will say Upamecano really did sell out there, and the
Oh, he
Upa
was
Maguire
awful.
comment, it's messed up, but the Upa Maguire comment was not wrong. Really, he was that bad. Uh, it's safe to say that two of the goals in the first leg alone were his fault. And then the only goal in the second leg was definitely his fault.
Oh, completely his fault. He gave the ball right
So,
to
I
him.
mean, like, you have Delict on one side who is a rock and he's doing everything he can. And then you have Upa on the other side, who historically, against Holland back when he was in the Bundesliga, he did pretty well. But I think we've seen now that Holland has reached a new level. He's a completely different player than he was in the Bundesliga, which is usually the opposite, like we saw with Timo Werner. He kind of dropped down a level once he entered the Prem. You would expect that from most players, but Holland has just completely turned into a different player.
Yeah, Holland has been an absolute freak of nature since going to City. He's got over 45 goals in all competitions this season. Absolutely dominating the Champions League. He's got 32 in the Prem. He's going to break the record. There's no unless he. And I think all City fans would cry if this happened. Unless he got a serious injury, there's nothing stopping him. There's absolutely nothing stopping him. I think Pep has done a great job at managing his workload because he does have that history to him of injuries. But when he is on, I mean, he's phenomenal, and the fact that assist he had as well shows that he's not just a scorer; that he can also be the setup guy if he has to. And that's something we didn't see a ton at Dortmund. That's something we see more from the likes of Harry Kane. So the fact that he's adding that to his game now is just, I mean, that's just another level. But as for Dio, I think they're missing Nicholas Sula, and I didn't think that they would as much as they have. But considering Sula is now an absolute rock starter for Dortmund, and Dio has overall been fine, but when it's these big moments, he hasn't been great.
Yeah, I will say the signing of Delict has probably saved a lot more embarrassment that could have come. He's definitely the saving grace back there. Really missing Lucas Hernandez too. He's an unsung hero of Bayern all the time, and I know he's back training. He's getting the steps in, but I think it might be too little, too late, to be honest. Missing him definitely hurts, and it's been a long time. It's been since the World Cup that he's been missing. But one could hope that he comes back in time, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, you'll also need him too because Alfonso Davies did pull.
Too.
I'm repping him today, but he unfortunately did pull a hamstring by the looks of it. So that's a if I had to assume if it is just a pulled hamstring, which hopefully that's all it is, that's at least 2 weeks there. So hopefully nothing serious. But I mean, Mazarawi is there, but he's not the same as Alfonso or Lucas Hernandez.
You
So
got Cancelo and Pavard that could do either side at the
yeah, I
worst case.
forgot about Cancelo. I forgot that Man City binned him there, but yeah, he's there too. So there is depth in that position, but Davies is definitely a loss as well. Yeah, but I do think that Man City have a great chance against Madrid. We can talk about that shortly, but speaking of Madrid, they're the ones that also advanced. I said they'd win 4-0 in the first leg. They ended up winning 4-0 on aggregate, so close enough. And Chelsea did not look at all alive in these fixtures. Maybe for the first 10 minutes of the home tie. Obviously, that save by Thibaut Courtois was one of the best that I've seen in recent memory. Off, I think it was Cucurella, but Courtois came up big there. But after that, it was all Madrid. Um, Rodrigo was on a different level for the second leg. He scored both goals. Benzema got one in the first leg as well as Marco Asensio. So really comfortable wins for Madrid. They didn't really put a foot wrong, and that's kind of what we expected.
Yeah, no, I think as far as both of our predictions, that went pretty consistent. Um, Madrid's just a better team in general, but it's a night and day difference from Chelsea last year to this year, and even the year before. It's completely different. Um, I would like to say though, as far as predictions go, where we totally missed the mark, I think on Milan with Napoli. I don't think anyone could have expected losing twice to them 2 weeks in a row, but then again 3 times in 1 month. AC Milan has completely dominated Napoli in both league and Champions League.
Yeah, as a wise man named Jose Mourinho once said, football heritage. AC Milan is built for the Champions League. They have been in their history. They've won it. I want to say 6 times.
7,
Seven.
the
Yeah,
second
seven.
most.
7 times. Tied with
No, they're
not
solo
tied.
up there.
Liverpool's won 6. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh got my history a little wrong there, but Milan is they're built for the UCL. It's their competition. Olivier Giroud, despite missing a penalty, looked pretty good. He scored. Uh, Osimhen did get a consolation goal for Napoli, but at that point it was too late. And yeah, I was quite surprised too that Napoli did stutter as much as they did. I think not having Osimhen for the first leg really hurt them. Obviously, he's their best player. Kivara didn't have anybody to serve the ball to, so that was definitely tough for them. But yeah, they just kind of folded and didn't really provide a lot of life into the fixture.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a surprise, but I can't say that AC Milan don't deserve it. They've quite literally proven 3 times in a row that they are the better team as far as head to head goes. And as we saw, which isn't really much of a surprise with Inter beating Benfica,
Hey,
we
you
are
said
guaranteed.
Benfica was going to go through.
I thought so too. But like
I knew Inter was going.
it feels like watching them play that might have just been like I don't know, maybe the Club Bruges effect and Scott Parker it really got in my head with how good they beat Club Bruges back in the
Yeah,
last round.
no, but I mean Benfica's cursed.
True. Yeah,
They're not
that's
winning a European competition until 2058. I want to say. Um, whenever
to
that
my
curse was put on them, it may have been the early '60s. I think it was '61 or '62. But yeah, they're cursed. I figured Inter Milan was going to win. Lukaku was a factor. Um, Their defense was completely wide. Both defenses were completely wide open in the second leg. It was 3-3. But overall, Inter a good win and setting up a very enticing semifinal for the semis.
What I do want to say is that this is we're guaranteed a Italian finalist for the first time since
20
16, 17.
14, I want to say, when Juventus made it against Barcelona.
No, because they faced Madrid in the final. No,
They did.
2017.
They did. That's right. 17. Yeah, when Mandzukic scored that wonder goal. But
Yeah,
then
so
after that, it was all Madrid.
first time in a few years, guaranteed Italian finalists. Um, yeah, and of course we have a repeat of the semifinal from last year between City and Madrid. So
Yeah. If I was predicting these right now, my gut really wants to say Man City makes the final. It could go either way.
I
This
would say
this
so.
one is very much a toss up. I don't see I don't see this fixture being uh like wide open. I think it'll be. I mean, last season obviously we had that crazy 4-3 game, but I just think that City are going to have that edge in defense this year where they haven't had it. Manuel Akanji's been a big part of that. But also, I just think that Holland is the X factor. Last year, City didn't have a striker. They were able to play really well without one. Obviously, they won the Premier League without one, but Holland's the X factor. I do really think that. Um, I think it'll be about 3-1 at home for City. Um, but away, I think Madrid might get the away win, but or the home win for them, away game for City. But I do think maybe it'll be 1-1. But I do think that City has the edge this year. Madrid obviously is a very good defensive team as well, with the likes of Alaba, Militao, Rudiger. But I think Holland's going to give those guys nightmares, and he'll score at least one or two.
I think City is now the better team. They're just a more complete team. No one no one's lazy on the field. Like everyone plays multiple roles. Like you see everyone just drop back a little bit to play a little bit of defense. I think Bernardo does a good job of that. I think Grealish runs the pitch a lot now, and he's just so good after the World Cup, and it can't be understated. Holland, you already mentioned that's just how it is. But whatever Pep is doing with his defenders, I know he's been playing Stones kind of all over the place, but it's been working. And as strange as it is, whatever he's doing, I think he should stick to it. It doesn't have to overthink it this time.
Yeah, Stones is one of those guys that has been slept on his whole City career. I remember when they came over from Everton, a lot of people were like 50 million for this guy, really. But he's still here. I mean, that was five years ago.
Did take some
John's
time though to
it did. It did.
acclimate.
But he has. I mean, the last few years, John Stones has been one of City's best players, but he's never talked about because there's always somebody better. The likes of Laporte had a great season a couple years ago. Ruben Diaz is now like the main guy there, but now Stones has moved over to right back. He's kicked Kyle Walker out of the team because Kyle Walker can't make those inside runs. And the fact that he's done this is just it's just phenomenal. The fact that he's been given the freedom to be this attacking type of central fullback, which is very weird to say. But honestly, yeah, John Stones is a good player. The fact that he doesn't get talked enough about, like, I don't understand. I don't really understand it because he's had I want to say almost 200 appearances for City, and I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. He's a phenomenal player. Um, as for the defense, I mean, Ruben Diaz has been on another level since coming back from injury. I think it shows how important he is for the team. I want to say he's been arguably the best defender in the Prem this season. And then Akanji's been a great addition. Ederson also played really well against Bayern. So I just think City is the edge.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll put City in the final, and I want to say it's close, but it's not as close as you may think. I feel like City definitely have that strong edge here. As far as the Milan derby goes, I'll probably put AC up there. And it's not going to be like a goal fest either. This is going to be one of those boring sets that you kind of just you catch after.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think AC will go through. Uh, Obviously, Inter. I think on paper, Inter is actually the better team. I think there's a lot more quality in that team with the likes of Lukaku, and then their defense is also very good. But I just think that AC's again, kind of going back their history, I think benefits them well, and they beat the better team in the quarters. I'm going to give AC the edge. I'm going to think I agree with the score. I think it'll be 1-0 in one leg with Giroud scoring a goal, and then second leg it'll be maybe 1-1. I'll give Lukaku one, and then I'll say Zlatan Ibrahimovic comes in and gets the goal to send them to the final. I'll go with that.
Pretty consistent. But yeah, I think that'll probably be the final. And I'm not ready to predict that. Anything can change, but I think that's where I'm gonna keep it at for now.
Yeah,
With
I
those,
think a lot can happen in either tie. I'm not going to count Madrid out. I'm absolutely not. A bunch of pundits and especially Jamie Carragher have done that. He counted Madrid out when Liverpool was up 2-0 against them. You never count Madrid out. I kind of hope Madrid scores the first goal because when they do, they're a lot worse. As weird as that may sound, I'd rather City not score the first unless they can manage to get that second. But I do think that both semifinals are going to be absolutely just enthralling ties. So a lot to look forward to then. But
yeah.
moving on to the Premier League, Arsenal. Oh boy, that's 4 drop points this
You
past
see this?
weekend. They are
You see this? What's going on here?
absolutely bottling the Premier League. Uh, I mean, drawing against Liverpool at Anfield is one thing.
Yeah,
Not a result that I mean, traditionally Arsenal have been absolutely dreadful at Anfield. So getting the draw there is one thing, but drawing at home to Southampton is absolutely pathetic.
and needing to crawl back in the last few minutes. I'll give them the credit for not, completely folding and ending up with a loss to a relegation team, but I mean, you shouldn't have to be there. Granted, Southampton has won against some big clubs this season, but you're in your best season in however many years. You have to beat them.
Yeah, they let Duj Kaletakar score a goal.
That was a good goal.
He's been one of the worst defenders in the league this season. He's awful. And he scored a goal on like he was in the defense when when Southampton conceded two late ones and couldn't see out the win. He's terrible. But he scored against Arsenal. Like that's just bad. Uh,
Weird
but
stuff happens.
but I mean Southampton got off to that fast start. I mean, for some reason I can't think of their attacking midfielder's name, but he scores and then sets up Theo Walcott as well. And Southampton had a quick start. Obviously Martinelli gets a good goal off a cross from Bukayo Saka. But then it's I mean Southampton score in the second with Kaletakar, and then Odegaard and Saka managed to bring them back. But I think that this really does give Man City the edge in the league. I'm a lot more confident in saying this in the league than the Champions League. I think Man City's going to win the league. And
Of
even
course, that game comes up Wednesday. That's after that. I think that's where we see
I think
who
City have
goes
City have a huge advantage in that game. They're at home. Holland's on fire. They're finally clicking. I mean, if Man City had played like this all season, Arsenal wouldn't have led. Man City just had some stutters earlier, especially that game against Brentford at home when Ivan Toney scored twice. I do think that they're going to be the league winners. I haven't really talked a lot about that recently because I was iffy about Arsenal. I was like, oh, maybe they'll win. But Arsenal are kind of pulling an Arsenal and absolutely just choking miserably. And I think that the game in the Etihad will be the deciding factor. I think City will win. Even if City gets a tie, even if this game ends in a draw, City still have the advantage because of the draw to Southampton. Arsenal currently have a 5-point lead, but City has 2 games in hand. If they win both of those, they have a lead of 1. So I have to say that I think all of the cards are in City's favor. And then they also did just get to the FA Cup final with a convincing 3-0 win over Sheffield United.
I gotta say, the Ballon d'Or is most certainly in the near future for Holland. This playing at this level, if he does that, which I believe he will, and it'll only get better, he will be in a top 3 conversation every year. He's about to break the record, and I don't see any way that he doesn't. Really, Holland d'Or is what someone said the other day, and that's what it's gonna be. Soon, that's what it's gonna be called
That's
after
awesome.
Messi, Ronaldo era is gone. Holland d'Or is coming soon. If not next year, then the year after. I think it's coming very soon.
I really think if City win the treble, meaning the Champions League, FA Cup League, I think that trumps Messi's World Cup.
It might.
I no, I think it does. I mean, Benzema won it off of a league and cup double,
Yeah.
league and Champions League. If Haaland wins the league and the Champions League, but also wins the FA Cup, which
And the
uh,
Golden Boot. He will have the
he
European
will
Golden
win the
Boot
Golden
by
Boot.
landslide.
Yeah, it's not even close. I think Harry Kane's second, and he's like 10 below Haaland. If he's able to do that, I think that in my opinion, as an even as an unbiased football fan,
I'll
obviously
agree
I
with
like
you.
City, but it's a trouble. You're the biggest player in a treble winning team. I think that beats the World Cup. I really do. The World Cup is a one off tournament, and I get that Modric won it, but Modric also won the Champions League that year. The year he won the Ballon d'Or. I understand everything, but I really do think that Holland's goal tally in all competitions is going to beat the World Cup. If City do win the treble, and even if they win just the league and Champions League, even if they lose the FA Cup, I still think that he's got the advantage. He has more goal contributions than Messi does this season. Messi's 15 and 15, which is very impressive. But 32 goals, it'll be close to 40. There's 8 games left for City. It'll be close to 40 for him. If he averages a goal a game, that's 40. I think if he does that in the Premier League, which is historically in the last, 2 decades or so, historically he's been the best league in the world. With obviously the likes of Serie A, La Liga having, the in and outs there, but historically the last couple decades, it's been the toughest league to play in. If he scores 40 goals, wins 2 or 3 trophies in his debut season,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
absolutely think that that's Ballon d'Or worthy. I really do. I think that has a higher weight than winning the World Cup.
I do hate to say it because the story that Messi had, it was obviously picture perfect. Growing up watching him, that's just kind of what you would expect. Plus, he always wins Ballon d'Ors when he doesn't deserve them. But
Yeah.
that's another story. So I do think that Holland, regardless, I think even with just the Champions League, that there's a strong case because he's going to get the goal record. He's guaranteed a European Golden Boot. Um, One trophy and the goal tally and how convincing it is, and all the things considered, like you said, debut season in the toughest league. I don't see why he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, there was a highlight robbery in 2020, 2021 when Lewandowski didn't win it. And he absolutely deserved it way more than Messi did. Um, and I think the treble, the reason I say he maybe has to win the treble is because of Messi's name.
Yeah,
He has to outperform Leo, but just because it's Messi, he has to outperform Messi in basically every facet. Not to mention, his team also knocked out the team that knocked out Messi. So I think that may have some weight as well. So we'll see. I'll be absolutely. I mean, if Holland wins the treble and I mean, here's the thing: if City lose the Champions League and lose the FA Cup, I mean, if they only win the league, I would still give the advantage to Lionel Messi. But if they win the treble or even win the double, I just don't know how you can override that. If PSG won the Champions League, it would have been Messi's. Like no brainer, absolutely no doubt would have been Lionel Messi. But I just think with the season Haaland's had, he may deserve it at the end of the year, but that's a conversation for a month or so, a month or two after. We'll see. We'll see who wins the trophies, but I really do like Haaland's odds currently. But yeah, the final Prem game we're gonna talk about is the one that happened today, uh, Sunday the 23rd. Newcastle scored 5 goals within the first 21 minutes of the game. They were up 5-0 at halftime. The game ended 6-1 over Tottenham. Tottenham's in free fall at this point. I don't really know how else to say it. Firing Conte was definitely the right decision, but the fact that they didn't replace him, that's coming back to haunt them.
Checking now, they are sitting pretty in 5th place. And Liverpool, honestly, depending on how fixtures go, even Brighton.
Brighton and Aston Villa are around there too.
Yeah, it goes Aston Villa, Liverpool, and Brighton. Brighton have 3 games in hand, so that's something to look at because they're only 4 points below Tottenham, and they have all those games to play. So that could be something that to look out for.
Yeah, Liverpool is still in the race, even though they've been as consistent as. I can't even think of something too inconsistent right now, but Liverpool's consistency has been an absolute major issue for them this season. They'll have the amazing game where they win 7-0 over Man United, and then they'll falter like right after that against Bournemouth. Like it doesn't make any sense. But despite that, they're still in the race for the Europa League. I don't think they're going to go fourth. I think the top four is pretty solidified. Newcastle obviously had a defining win today. They deserve top four at this point.
Yeah.
Arsenal's league challenge may also get lost there because the Arsenal does have to travel to St. James's, and that place erupted today. I think that Newcastle have a fantastic chance of getting top four. Alexander Isak has been phenomenal. Joe Linton's been pretty good, and even Jacob Murphy has been good this year. So I don't know. Hard to say what'll happen there with Newcastle. Come the end of the. Oh, looks like there was a slight delay there in Wi-Fi. It does happen. That's the issue over Zoom sometimes, but I'm not sure where it cut us off. But I was just talking about how Newcastle are going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with. I was mentioning that Jacob Murphy had a great game. Joe Linton's been phenomenal, and that they, I think, deserve top four. Not sure where it cut me off there, but I do think that they are going to be top four by the end of the season.
I was saying it quite early in the season, at least in the group chat, probably before we even started the podcast, that Newcastle is a shout for top four. They had a scary middle part of the season where they were only drawing or just lackluster results, but in the last few weeks, they've kind of dominated. Honestly, they've had very convincing wins by three goals or so in many of them. So United, as good as they have been, have kind of, like you said, faltered is a good word. But they have kind of faltered a little bit themselves, and I think that's definitely showing. But they still should remain top four. I think they have a couple games in hand.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm looking at my Prem predictions right now, and I absolutely fumbled the bag on that one. I said Newcastle would finish 8th, so
Also,
not great on my part there. I also said Tottenham would finish 3rd, which that prediction's quite shocking. Although I did say Chelsea would finish 4th, so that one's looking the worst out of that bunch. But I did think that Newcastle were going to be good this year. I had decent expectations. I think the reason I put them 8th is because of how bad their start was last season before they got Eddie Howe. But I mean, this season there's nothing really separating them from the others in the top four. I do think that they have that advantage running into that. But yeah, we'll move on to the Bundesliga. The two big games that happened were that Bayern Munich did lose 3-1 to Mainz, and Dortmund had a very convincing win over Eintracht Frankfurt. The table currently sits 60 points for Dortmund, 59 for Bayern Munich. I'm really hoping that Dortmund wins it, and we'll see with 5 games remaining.
Listen, reality has to set in at some point. This might be the time where it does. I've been quite spoiled, I will say,
You
for
don't say.
almost a decade now. This would be probably the decade point where I've been a fan of the sport and of the team. Um, yeah, I've been pampered with trophies ever since my starting of watching the sport, and I don't know what this feels like. This isn't as gut wrenching as being a Chelsea fan. I have one of my close friends is a Chelsea fan, and he's almost depressed every day. He's got his own young Kepa vibes going on. But yeah, this is tough. I'm not gonna give up. Obviously, it's way too close to say that the season's over. Crazier things have happened. Uh, at this point, they've already faced each other, so that result doesn't really hold up much weight anymore. Um,
Nope.
I don't know the difficulty of either of their schedules, but I want to say at this point,
So I
it
did
doesn't
look at
matter.
that. I did look at that. The toughest game that Bayern Munich still have is Leipzig, but other than that, it's pretty easy. Dortmund's is, I would say, even easier. The toughest team that they have is probably actually the team that did just beat Bayern, which is Mainz. Um, I mean, yeah, both have very comfortable schedules. Leipzig being probably the toughest team of either, but even then, it's I if I think both teams have a good chance of winning out.
Yeah, Leipzig is like they're hit or miss. Bayern has a pretty good history against them though, so but they've had a good history against every single team they've lost to this season as well. So
Except Mönchengladbach. Mönchengladbach is Bayern's
they're in the
kryptonite.
past. They're in the past. I'm thankful that they're not part of the schedule in the last
Oh yeah,
remaining games.
you might as well give the title to
That
Dortmund at
would have
that
been
point.
yeah, that would have been a
If
surefire.
Mönchengladbach were in there, and
Um,
yeah, I do know what it's like
yeah,
to suffer as a fan. Obviously, I like City of Madrid, but I also root for the New England Revolution. They make me sad every single year. They're currently top of MLS, tied with points with Cincinnati, but yeah, they'll break my hearts again at the end of the season. That's what they do every year. It's just it's very disheartening that you've been in the league for 25 years and you haven't won anything other than a freaking supporter shield. So I do know the feeling. Um, but yeah, no, we're both Boston sports fans, so generally our teams are actually pretty good. Except for the Red Sox, they're very hit or miss. But yeah, I mean the Bundesliga is very tight. And yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of Dortmund and Bayern. I'm really hoping Dortmund win. I have a friend who lives out there. I was in the Yellow Wall last year, so I really do hope that that those fans finally get something that they deserve. Which ironically, it's weird that Dortmund's winning. If they do win the league, they did it without Holland, which is quite interesting. Um, but props to Sebastian Aller, Daniel Malen, guys that have really been Adeyemi, guys that have really been carrying them this season in Bayern's falter there. I will say I think that my prediction of Tuchel is looking very good. I did say that it was the right decision, but I also said I would have waited until the end of the season. I think that that's looking pretty good right now because knocked out of the Champions League, you've lost a couple games since he's come in. Obviously, he's still a good coach. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He will be Bayern's coach for next year, even if he does lose the league. But I would have waited till the end of the season to see how Nagelsmann did. Nagelsmann was killing it in the Champions League. But yeah, no, Tuchel is good, but I do think that they should have waited till the end of the year.
yeah, I think it's something that'll take time. You have to get used to the squad. It's the whole ordeal. You kind of get thrown in at one of the hardest parts of the season, understandably so. But at the same time, I mean, these are teams that you should be beating with the squad that you have. This is like an ultimate team squad, really. Yeah, these are all world class players. Um, he's made some changes as far as the starting lineup goes that I
Even
really don't.
Choupo-Moting.
I like Choupo-Moting, man, and he's had a pretty decent season as far as like historically he's concerned. But what I do know is that even if this year is not the year, I know that Bayern have stated quite clearly that they're dedicating a little bit over 100 million to signing a new striker when the window opens again. So whoever that may be, I've heard a couple of things, but I think that's obviously the biggest thing the team is missing after the departure of Louis. But yeah, that's going to be what that molds the team together come next season.
Yeah, I think they'll also make some money on Sadio Mane at the end of the year.
Yes,
I do think that he, even though he is back in the team, I don't think he's
they
gonna
said they're getting
be.
rid of him.
I don't think he's gonna, yeah, be on the
They've been
team
so
past
clear.
it. If I was Bayern, the striker I would go for is Harry Kane.
They said that. Yeah,
Um, because I think I mean, obviously the goal scoring record speaks for itself, but he also, with the wings that Bayern has, whether it be Coman, Gnabry, um, and Sane, if whatever, if it's one of those guys, Kane is amazing at link up play. He can do a through ball. He'd be perfect for those guys. He can drop a bit deeper, get the ball to them, let them create, let them cross back to him, and he'll score. Kane, I think, would be a great player for Bayern Munich. Um, if not him, uh, I mean, there's other names out there, but I would say he's the one that you would want to go for.
is the main one. There's two rumors that I've been hearing. He was one of them. The other one was being Ozyman, who even commented on this himself. Obviously, he said he wants to play in the Premier League one day, but he said he would not be opposed to having that pit stop kind of in between. And he's obviously a player of quality, but I do agree. Of course, Harry Kane is obviously the more proven player. You know exactly what you're going to get from him, and he is a player that deserves a trophy at all in his career. So if that's what he wants, then this is probably the best place to do so.
Yeah, Ozyman would be great too, but I just think for the way that Bayern play, relying on those wings and their fullbacks too, especially. I mean, Alphonso Davies gets forward as well. Same with Pavard. I just think that Kane would be the perfect guy for them.
He
Um,
plays like Louis as far as like pace. He's not like the quickest guy. That's kind of how they have played for the last several years, honestly, and it's obviously something that's worked, and we've seen how that's fared
yeah,
without him. So I think filling the void without Louis is finding the player that is quite literally almost, you know, a trophyless version of him, if we're being honest.
yeah,
There's not much separating that as far as talent goes.
yeah. I think Kane would be the perfect player for Bayern. Ozyman would be good too, but he's more of an out and out kind of like speedy target man. Um, I do think, I mean, I think he'd put up goals for Bayern, but I just think his link up play isn't as good as Kane's. Um, a great finisher, of course, though. I do think Kane would be the better option. I mean, Tottenham, as we saw today, is an absolute disaster. So I think it's finally time for him to call it quits. He's given so much to that team, and he's gotten nothing in return. Um, I just think that Kane is the guy that absolutely deserves to go there. Um, I mean, Lukaku could maybe be another option, but I think he loves playing for Inter Milan, so I don't think he's going anywhere.
No, thank you.
Um, so I just think that it'll be those guys, and maybe one that is a little more under the radar, but I think would do a job at Bayern as well is Gabriel Jesus. Kind of similar to a little faster than Kane, maybe not as efficient in front of goal, but I do think he would thrive there as well. But I don't see him leaving Arsenal. He just went there.
Well, they have dedicated the amount of money that they said that they plan on spending would not fit the Jesus
It would be
level,
Kane,
I
more
guess.
more
Yeah.
Kane. Yeah. So, but yeah, that will do it for our main segment. We're gonna go into our usual weekly segment of Idiot Goal. And oh wait, there is one thing I forgot to mention before we do that. Wrexham has been promoted. I think this is the team that everyone can get behind, even opposing fans. Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney's team is going to League Two. It's been a while for them, and they obviously had the historic season, highest points total ever. But I'm going to give a shout out to Notts County as well because that team has also been really good. They're also probably going to break the points record for the National League. But yeah, I mean, Wrexham are going up. It's a big thing. Their story does continue.
I want to say it's a tough season. You look at it, it's 45 games, I think, something like
I
that.
want to say 46.
That's a lot. Like I know, like they have. It's tough to say. They have the privilege of not playing in other tournaments because a lot of these players aren't good enough to be playing in national team call-ups and stuff like that and European competitions, obviously. So it's kind of around the same amount of games, but a 45 game, 46 game consistent schedule, it's not easy at all. So to play a season like that and win the amount of games that you have, that's very impressive.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, both them and Notts County have been neck and neck the whole season. Both of them are 20 points above the next team. And Wrexham, yeah, Wrexham absolutely deserve it. They're they're a great team. You know, there's a lot of quality. Paul Mullen, especially, he's been their guy this whole year. He's been phenomenal. Ollie Palmer's a great player. Elliot Lee, you know, a lot of guys that are now in the spotlight because of Welcome to Wrexham, which I still need to watch. But I do think that this team kind of shows when an owner cares and puts money into the team. Obviously, a lot of the money that's come into Wrexham has been from the documentary, but it just shows what being good owners can do. And obviously, they're big celebrities. You know, everyone. I think most people would know who Ryan Reynolds is at this point. But I mean, he's been there when he has to. I mean, he was there yesterday celebrating with the team on the field. He was at their FA Cup games. I mean, he's been a dedicated owner thus far. Same with McElhenney. So I absolutely think that their story is amazing, and I'm super happy for them.
And it's very cool to see. But yeah, good for them. And I don't want to jump the gun here, but we could move into that hero segment real quick because
Go for it.
that would have been my hero. Just because, you know, the story behind it, how long it's taken to get promoted, all that jazz. I think the front office, the owners, Ryan Reynolds and McElhaney, Ben Foster, they all deserve a nice little shout out there.
Ben Foster's been great.
I'll give them my hero shout out for the week.
Fair enough. Mine, there's a couple. One would be Julian Nagelsmann for being very smart and declining the move to Chelsea. If I was him, I would not do that either. I
Uh-huh.
don't think anyone would. Maybe he'll be smart enough to also dodge Tottenham, but we'll see. I'll give him a shout out there, but mine would be Dortmund. They're finally at the top of the league. I think if they win out, they'll win the. I mean, if they do win out, they'll win the league. But I think they have the ability to win out, and yeah, I'm very happy for them. They might finally end the dominance that Bayern Munich has had for the last 10 seasons. So I'm picking them.
Let's do our lovely idiot. Let's do idiot.
All right, I'll let you go first on this one.
Spurs. They suck. They're awful. I don't know how you could be in fifth place and be awful. Like fifth place for most teams is their career season. Eh, You suck. How and I get Newcastle's good, but 5 goals in 20 minutes, and then you're tying to teams that don't even exist basically in the bottom of the relegation. You're awful. You're awful.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. It is the history of the Tottenham. Um, but I'm also going to talk about Italian football for this too, for two separate occasions. One is the fact that they gave Juventus back their points. Now, obviously, they didn't find any additional things on them, and there hasn't been enough conclusive evidence. But the investigation is still going on. So I think they jumped the gun on deducting the points from Juve in the first place. Um, that's a big thing. But the other one is the fact that they upheld Romelu Lukaku's suspension. So the story behind this is Lukaku was being racially abused. He got sent off in retaliation for it, which is ridiculous in its own right. I mean, this is something bigger than football that he was, protesting against. And then Italian football upheld his suspension. That's a very big L for Italian football. And I'm with Lukaku on this one.
Yeah, I didn't know that much. Obviously, that's something I brought up in the last episode for or just one of the discussions in general. I did not know that they upheld that. Um, Although I agree with the decision to kind of ease up on Juventus. I feel like this should be treated more seriously than uh, that situation. I get that it's a big deal, but this is a much bigger deal. And on top of that, you did the wrong thing. You actually made it worse. So I'm not even sure how that's possible to make that situation worse, but they did
It
just that.
they managed to do it. Um, like it's one of these things where you should defend your player if you're the league, defend the guy that was being targeted, but they didn't do that. So um, yeah, I'm gonna obviously Tottenham I think take the first spot for this just because of how bad they are, but yeah, this is a big one too. It's not a good look for Italian football, so I I gotta give them a spot for this segment too. For being just not even just idiots, but just absolute clowns. I mean, you can't do that. Um, big Italian. I mean, in recent history, other than the Champions League, common Italian football L. They've made some absolutely just insane decisions this year. But yeah, with that being said, moving on to goal of the week. I'm gonna go. There's a couple I could have picked for this. One, I mean, Harry Kane's solo run today was pretty good. I mean, give a shout to MLS player Richie Deloria on Toronto FC. Had a brilliant solo run to score a goal last week. Um, but I'm going to give mine to Jacob Murphy today. His goal was taken from about 20, 25 yards out. Left Lloris absolutely planted into the ground, put it in the bottom corner. Fantastic strike. Even he was surprised that he scored it. But I'm gonna give it to him.
Yeah, I'm gonna give mine based just on quality to Martinelli against Southampton. Of course, the result is not what you wanted, but it was an important goal in securing a point at all. And I just think it was a really nice take and strike. He had the very late cross at the line from Sock, I believe it was, and then just a nice one touch half volley, I think, into the net. It was nice, and it prevented them from being totally lost in a game that could have slipped away from them pretty easily.
Yeah,
So
that was a nicely taken goal. I can't dispute that one at all. But yeah, that's a good one. Do you have any final remarks?
no, that's all. Up the Gunners, please. Well, let's get that going.
No, that's not happening. I think we both know that's not happening.
The
Obviously,
Gunners.
I'm a lot happier about it than you are, but that's not happening at this point. I do think that City will win the league. But on that note, with hopefully City winning the league, we did discuss a fair bit today. We talked about the Champions League, Premier League, and a bit of the Bundesliga as well. Obviously, the Champions League, Madrid, City, Inter, and AC Milan have all qualified for the semifinals. Should be two great games that we will be seeing. In the Prem, we talked about the fact that City have 2 games in hand on Arsenal and now only a 5-point lead for the Gunners. So we'll see what happens there. They play on Wednesday. Holland is at 32 goals, and we talked about potentially him being in the Ballon d'Or conversation this year if City do make it far. Newcastle absolutely obliterated Tottenham. One of the most embarrassing performances that I've seen in recent memory. We then moved on to the Bundesliga, where we did talk about the fact that Bayern Munich did lose, and Dortmund did have a good, convincing win to take the lead in the Bundesliga, each with 5 games left. We then moved on to Wrexham getting promoted, which is absolutely amazing. I think basically every neutral fan was happy about that, with the owners Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney being uh, celebrated in that regard. Then we, as usual, summed it up with our hero, idiot, and goal of the week. That will do us. I can't even talk today. That will do it for us this week. As always, I am Grayson Mortimer,
I'm Hunter Boyman.
and we will see you next time.